There are people who prepare for the worst because they are afraid. And there are people who prepare for the worst because they love someone so much that they refuse to leave them unprotected. Even from the other side of whatever comes next, Camille Graves was the second kind of person. And this is her story. The waiting room at Mercy General Hospital in Atlanta was quiet at 2 in the morning. Most of the chairs were empty. The overhead lights hummed at the particular frequency of rooms, where time moves differently than it does in the outside world. Marcus Graves sat in a chair near the window. He had arrived 40 minutes ago, after his phone had rung a second time, and he had understood that not answering again would become a thing he could not explain. He was still dressed from the restaurant. Dark blazer, open collar, the faint smell of the champagne he and Vanessa had been drinking when the calls started coming. Vanessa was not with him. She had understood, practically and without drama, that the hospital was not a place she could be. She had gone home in a rideshare and sent him a message that said, "Let me know." Marcus sat in the waiting room and looked at his phone. He had been married to Camille for 4 years. She was 34 years old, and she was somewhere behind the double doors at the end of the corridor, in a room he had not asked to be shown to and had not been invited into. The pregnancy had been high risk. The doctors had explained this multiple times. Camille had listened to every explanation with the focused precision that defined everything she did. She had asked questions he had not thought to ask. She had taken notes. He had been at a dinner with Vanessa when Camille's water broke. He had seen the call. He had finished his drink first. A nurse appeared from behind the double doors. She walked toward him with the expression of someone who has delivered this particular kind of news before and has not found a way to make it land gently. She said, "Mr. Graves." He stood. She said, "Your daughter is healthy. She is with the team." He waited. She said, "Your wife did not survive the surgery. I am so sorry." The room did not change. The lights continued to hum. His phone was still in his hand. He stood in the waiting room of Mercy General Hospital at 2 in the morning, and he heard what the nurse said, and he did not fully understand it yet. The way you do not fully understand something when you have not been present for the thing that made it true. He sat back down. He looked at his phone. He sent Vanessa a message. Camille Graves had grown up in Chicago's South Side, the daughter of a high school science teacher and a woman who ran a catering business from their kitchen until it was large enough to require a commercial space. She had been, from the time she was very young, a person who finished things, who followed through, who understood that the distance between a plan and a result was just work, applied consistently, over time. She had graduated from Spelman with a biology degree and from Johns Hopkins with a master's in biomedical engineering. At 27, she and a college friend had co-founded a medical technology company in Atlanta, a company that developed diagnostic software for early-stage disease detection. She had built it in the careful, unhurried way her mother had built the catering business, without noise, without announcing what she was doing until it was already done. By the time she met Marcus at a mutual friend's dinner party 8 years ago, the company was growing. By the time they married, it was significant. By the time she went into labor, it had just closed a $340 million acquisition deal with National Healthcare Group. Marcus had never known the company existed, not because Camille had hidden it from him in a dramatic way, but because he had never asked. In 4 years of marriage, he had not once asked his wife what she did with her days in any way that required a real answer. He had accepted the general shape of things. She worked in healthcare. She traveled sometimes. She had meetings. He had not looked further. He had not needed to. He had his own career, his own world, his own increasingly separate life. Camille had observed this carefully. She had made a decision about it. She had not confronted him. She had not demanded he show interest. She had not cried about it or explained to him how it felt to be married to someone who did not see you. She had simply gone to see her attorney, her financial advisor, and her OBGYN in a single afternoon 3 weeks before her due date. And she had made arrangements every evening for the last 3 months of her pregnancy. Camille had written in a small green notebook she kept on her nightstand. She wrote one thing each evening, one thing she wanted her child to know about the world, about her own history, about what it meant to be a black woman building something in rooms that were not designed for you, about how to carry yourself when no one is watching, and also when everyone is. She filled 61 pages. On the last page, she wrote, "I do not know what comes next for me, but I know what I am leaving you, and I know you will know what to do with it, because you will be mine." She sealed the notebook in an envelope. On the outside, she wrote 4 words, "For my child, not for him." She gave it to Dr. Carol Simmons. Dr. Simmons had been Camille's OBGYN for 4 years. She was a precise and careful woman who had practiced for 22 years and who had a particular respect for patients who asked good questions and followed through on difficult plans. Camille had been that kind of patient from the first appointment. In the final months, Camille had given Dr. Simmons 2 things to hold: the notebook and a sealed envelope, and a separate sealed envelope containing legal documents: the estate summary, the company documentation, the guardianship designation, and a letter from Camille's attorney confirming the structure of everything she had built and everything she had arranged. Dr. Simmons had accepted both without being asked to explain them or endorse them. She understood what they were. She understood what they meant. She placed them in her office safe, and she had not spoken them to anyone. On the night of the delivery, she had done everything she could. The surgery had been complex, and the complications had moved faster than the team could contain them. At 1:47 in the morning, Camille's daughter was born healthy and strong, 7 pounds and 2 ounces, with her mother's cheekbones and her mother's expression of quiet focus. At 2:12 in the morning, Camille was gone. Dr. Simmons stood in the corridor for a moment. Then she went to the nurse's station, confirmed the baby was stable, confirmed the notifications had been made, and went to her office. She sat at her desk. She looked at the safe. She thought about Camille sitting across from her 3 weeks ago in the same office, calm and specific, handing her 2 envelopes and saying, "You will know when." She opened the safe. She held both envelopes for a moment. Then she picked up the phone. Across the city, in a restaurant that had stopped serving food an hour earlier, but kept the bar open for its better clients, Marcus and Vanessa had ordered champagne. He had told himself it was not a celebration, just a drink, just a particular relief of a night that had resolved itself without drama. Vanessa had said something that made him laugh. She had a talent for that. His phone buzzed on the table. He looked at it. The hospital. He let it ring twice. He did not want to seem eager. He answered on the 3rd ring. It was Dr. Simmons. She said, "Mr. Graves, I need you to come in tomorrow morning. There are things from your wife that require your presence." He said, "Things?" She said, "Legal matters, arrangements she made. I will explain everything when you arrive." He came the next morning. He was dressed carefully. He had prepared, on the drive over, a version of himself that was grieving and present and appropriate. He had not slept much. He had the expression of a man who is performing sorrow and is not entirely certain how well the performance is landing. Dr. Simmons met him in a small conference room off the main corridor. There were 2 chairs and a table and a box of tissues and nothing else. She sat across from him. She placed a folder on the table. She said, "Your wife left 2 things in my care. The first is for your daughter to be delivered to her legal guardian when she is old enough. It is not for you, and I will not be giving it to you." Marcus looked at the folder. He said, "Guardian, I am her father." Dr. Simmons said, "Camille designated her sister, Renee Reeves, as your daughter's legal guardian in the event of her death. The designation was filed with her attorney 6 weeks ago. It is legal, complete, and not contestable on any ground that your attorney will be able to identify." Marcus was quiet. Dr. Simmons opened the folder. She said, "The second thing is this. Your wife asked me to make sure you understood the full picture, not so you could change it, because she believed you deserved to know what you had been living beside." She turned the first page toward him. It was a company summary. The name, the founding date, the co-founders, the revenue, the acquisition, $340 million. Closed 7 days before Camille went into labor. Every share in Camille's name, not 1% in Marcus Graves. He looked at the page. He looked at Dr. Simmons. She said, "She built this company for 9 years. She was building it before she met you. She was building it through your entire marriage. She never stopped." She turned the next page. Her estate, the company proceeds, her investment portfolio for properties, is held in a trust she established 2 years ago. The sole beneficiary is your daughter. The trust is managed by Camille's attorney and her financial advisor. You have no legal standing in relation to any of it. She closed the folder. She said, "She planned for everything, Marcus, including you." Marcus sat in that room for a long time after Dr. Simmons left. His attorney, when he finally called, confirmed everything within 48 hours. The guardianship was airtight. The trust was airtight. Every document Camille had executed was dated, witnessed, and filed correctly. She had not left a single gap. His mother called him. His brother called him. He did not have answers for either of them that made sense in the way they wanted things to make sense. Vanessa sent 3 messages over the following week. He read them. He did not reply. There was no version of his life that she fit into anymore. Not because she had done anything wrong, but because the shape of his life had changed in a way that had nothing to do with her and everything to do with the woman he had not been present for. He drove past Renee Reeves' house one afternoon. He sat outside for a while. Through the front window, he could see the warm light of a living room and the shadow of someone moving inside with a baby. His daughter, Camille's daughter, growing up inside a love that had been planned and prepared and arranged long before she arrived. He drove home. He sat in quiet of a house that had never been Camille's in any way that the paperwork reflected. And he thought about 9 years of a company he had never once asked about. He thought about the shape of what he had missed. Dr. Carol Simmons sat in her office at the end of a long day, 3 weeks after delivery. The box on her desk contained one item, the sealed green envelope with Camille's handwriting on the front. For my child, not for him. It would be delivered to Renee Reeves the following morning, to be kept until Camille's daughter was old enough to receive it. Dr. Simmons looked at it for a long time. She thought about Camille sitting in this office, calm and specific and unhurried, handing her the envelope and saying, "She will need to know who I was, not who he thought I was, who I actually was." She thought about 61 pages written in the evenings on a nightstand beside a woman who was building something enormous in silence while the person beside her looked at his phone. She thought about what it meant to love someone that completely, to love them past your own presence, to love them into a future you would not see, to build them a foundation before they were born. She placed the envelope carefully in the box. She sealed the box. She held it for a moment, the way you hold something that cannot be replaced. She loved first. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who needs to hear what it looks like to love without limits. And tell me in the comments, what do you think Camille's greatest gift was? The estate she left her daughter or the notebook? I will see you in the next story. Sonnet 4.6 Low.